The Economic Commission for Africa, ECA, is one of the 5 regional commissions that the UN Secretariat has across the world. ECA itself has 5 sub-regional offices which are called SROs, and they're there to serve the 5 sub-regions of the continent, and these are North, West, Central, Eastern, and Southern Africa. The sub-regional office for Southern Africa, which is our office, is based in Lusaka, Zambia. We cover 11 countries, namely Angola, Botswana, Eswatini, Lesotho, Malawi, Mauritius, Mozambique, Namibia, South Africa, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. Our main objective as an office, of course, is to support inclusive industrialization within the sub-region, and this is because of the fact that a lot of the economies in the sub-region are heavily dependent on minerals or agriculture as their primary sectors, and because of that, there's still a lot of poverty in the sub-region, but also a lot of inequalities and lack of resilience of those economies.
The countries of the Southern Africa region have a number of industrialization policies and strategies that they use to support industrialization in the region. Now, those policies and strategies are plentiful, and they're not necessarily harmonized within the nation states themselves, but also across borders. Now, in order to support regional integration, feeding into the COMESA industrialization strategy and the SADC industrialization strategies, we really do need countries to be better harmonizing their policies and strategies. And that's the work that we support member states to undertake at ECA SRO Southern Africa. The AFCFTA, which is the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, is a very enabling tool to support industrialization, which is effectively the end goal that we hope to support member countries to achieve. We also know that member states are working towards SDG 9, which is a target that by 2030 member states should have enabling infrastructure, good innovation, and be working towards inclusive and sustainable industrialization. That's a process that ECA SRO Southern Africa is helping member states to achieve.
In the area of harmonization of policies, the Southern African Sub-Regional Office works in partnership with member states, regional economic communities, and development partners to identify action plans for implementation of national industrialization policies. Through this work, the Office supports cross-border cooperation for advancing industrialization in Southern Africa, including the setup of common agro-industrial parks.
The regional office works closely with COMESA and SADC Secretariat in supporting industrialization within the sub-region, specifically guided by the respective regional programs as adopted by the member states. These 2 frameworks provide the parameters within which member states facilitate and promote industrial development. A specific program under this overall support is the agro-industrial park between Zambia and Zimbabwe, which seeks to create a common industrial zone anchored on the agricultural potential of the 2 countries. The overall support that ECA SRO SA is providing is towards creating an environment where micro, small and medium scale enterprises can take advantages of the opportunities that emerge from this agro-industrial park.
For industrialization to be sustained over time, sub-regional Southern African member states have to harness their global and regional trade agreements to create and sustain markets for their goods and services. The African Continental Free Trade Area is intended to accelerate intra-regional trade and provide a boost to commodity-based industrialization, manufacturing, and regional value chains development in Southern African economies.
In the context of the work of the ECA Sub-Regional Office for Southern Africa, inclusive industrialization can be accelerated through trade and regional integration to foster sustainable growth and promote the reduction of poverty and inequality in Southern Africa. AFCFTA takes this to a whole new level with its promise of increased intra-African trade, industrialization, diversification, competitiveness, and job creation. In the sub-region, the agreement is expected to boost commodity-based industrialization, manufacturing, and regional value chains. A regional strategy would foster coordinated and integrated implementation, taking into account countries' respective comparative advantages, and ECA stands ready to support this initiative.
Private sector development lies at the heart of advancing inclusive industrialization and trade in the sub-region. And micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises form the foundation of Africa's private sector.
The Sub-Regional Office for Southern Africa has produced 2 analytical studies whose objectives are to help MSMEs identify market opportunities from the blue, green, and digital economies as they aim to build back better and for the years to come. We have also partnered with the training arm of ECA, which is the African Institute for Economic Development and Planning, IDEP, based in Dakar, Senegal. We partnered with them to develop an e-learning course targeted at African MSMEs. And the e-learning course was on the role of technology and innovation in helping African MSMEs address the impacts of COVID-19. It was a successful course, which was also followed by a webinar where experts were invited to discuss further on this issue. And in collaboration with the SADC Business Council, we are currently developing a digital-based portal and community of practice for MSMEs again, and in order to help them network and exchange ideas, experiences, and best practices on how they can develop and apply technology and innovation in order to enhance their competitiveness as, again, they aim to build back better post-COVID.
Okay, private sector development is a key area of focus of our office, the ECA Sub-Regional Office for Southern Africa. So our work on the private sector in the region has really been a focus on empowering the private sector, especially micro, small, and medium enterprises, to give them the authority, the power, the necessary skills, and the resources to drive the industrialization agenda of the region.
As part of the UNDA 12th Tranche project, we also looked at the impact of COVID in the region as a whole. And indeed, as expected, economic growth and trade performance were hardly hit by the pandemic because exports were actually affected because of closure of borders, closure of international flights, and trade was actually halted. But what was important were the lessons that we learned from those research that looked at the region. There are a number of lessons. One of them was that interdependence of the countries is extremely important because we rely on each other for several factors. But also the second thing was that there is need for regional self-sufficiency because we discovered that at that time the region had not been able to provide some of the facilities or some of the equipment needed to fight the pandemic within the region. We had to rely on other parts of the country, of the continent, but also other parts of the world. And in order to do all these things in a way that actually helps, there is need for good governance. As you are aware, when the pandemic hit, a number of governments instituted the recovery programs, some in terms of finances, some in terms of support, but this was only able to be effective if there was good governance. If you look at this, good governance becomes the overarching element of the recovery. And going forward, we are going to work with member states to take these lessons forward and see how can member states together as a region make sure that they are stronger at interdependence, that the region is self-sufficient, that the health infrastructure is actually enhanced, that the education infrastructure is actually enhanced, so that as we recover from the pandemic, we recover better and we recover faster.
Our sub-region is one of, actually is the one that suffers the deepest income inequality in the entire African continent. Accordingly, what we did as SCA, again, we commissioned a study on economic growth, inequality and poverty issues and policy. And then one of the key recommendations coming out of the study was the issue of good governance. Without good governance in all its aspects, be it political, economic, corporate, even traditional, without the good governance, we should forget about the issue of closing income inequality and pursuing the shared prosperity that we aspire to.
Our mandate is really, and what we mean by inclusive industrialization, it means that we'd like the countries in the sub-region to break away from those primary sectors, go into value addition, develop a lot of industries to support the poverty reduction efforts that we would like to see, but also create the much needed decent jobs that the sub-region needs, but also the continent needs. And in so doing, ensuring that we're actually improving the living standards of the people of the sub-region. For a resource-based sub-region like ours, it's highly unequal. Inclusive industrialization is certainly an imperative for the sub-region.